we watched Midsommar, and this is what we had to say. A couple travels to Sweden to visit a rural hometown's fabled Midsummer Festival. What begins as an idyllic retreat quickly dissolves into an increasingly violent and bizarre competition at the hands of a pagan cult. Joining me this week are Sasha Reid, Paul Stirrat, Vanashri Tapayal, and our guest this week, who's a director, he's a writer, he's a casting assistant, he runs HB Film Festival, and now he's the host of a great podcast, Choose Film, a Real Perspective. We've got Gary J Hewitt. Welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me.
Yeah, no bother at all. As a guy who spins a lot of plates myself, even I'm like, come on, man. So, are we all ready to talk about Midsommar? Yeah, I'm glad someone is. So, I'll go to Paul first, because Paul, this was your pick for the film club. So my first question was to Paul, and it's very simple. This you've seen? So, Paul, why this film?
Well, I saw this film in the cinema when it came out, 2019, and I remember leaving the cinema thinking, I really liked that. I left the cinema thinking, that's probably one of my favourite films of the year. I loved the sort of feel of the film. I loved that it was horror, but it wasn't like, there wasn't some huge monster or even one psychotic killer. It was just a village, and they think they're not doing anything wrong. And it was just so off-setting and unbalanced, and it made you feel so not at ease. And I loved every second of it. I thought it was actually quite funny as well in parts. And I thought that Florence Pugh was brilliant. I'd only ever seen her in one other thing at that point, and I was like, wow, so she's definitely one to look out. So I think it's kind of bananas. It's kind of Wicker Man .2, but it's different enough for it to be justified to have a place in your top 100 films.
Sasha, was this a Stirrat special for you, or had you seen the film before, and what are your first thoughts?
Well, yeah, it was a Stirrat special, but I have seen it twice since we've been told to watch it, because the first time I watched it, I just kind of sat there like, what did I just watch? I didn't take notes, I didn't do anything, I was just like, I don't know what's going on here. And then I watched it again. I like it. I will tell you that, I do like it, but I still don't know what I watched. It's so messed up, but it's so good and it's so interesting, and you still want to keep watching it. And the second time I noticed little things that I didn't notice the first time. So I think if I watched it again, maybe I'd understand it, but I don't think that's a good reason to watch a film again to try and understand it. But I think maybe when we go through this, I'll understand it a bit more. But yeah, it was a Stirrat special, and I did enjoy it.
I'll go to our horror aficionado, Vanashri, next. So tell us your thoughts on it.
I really enjoyed it. I actually went to watch it with my boyfriend. I made him go watch it at the cinema. We actually watched Hereditary as well on a date when we were dating. He still went out with me. And I said, well, let's go see his second film, Ari Aster's second film, because I really liked the Hereditary. And I really like it. It's, I understand it's not like a really kind of feel-good, pleasurable film, it's like you don't feel like elated when you watch it or anything like that. But it's just nice to appreciate it, the amount of work that's gone into this film. It's just it's just amazing. It's just that the amount of work that's gone into the scripts and the folklore and everything, that just the research that's gone into it, and the actual underlying meaning of it all. It's just so interesting trying to put your own kind of interpretation into a film. And so I've seen it twice now, and I think the second time I watched it, I picked up on a lot more things than I did on the first time I watched it. And it's just a pleasure to watch, because it's just so well made, and it's a masterpiece in my opinion.
Gary, what are your first thoughts on Midsommar?
I've seen it twice now, and the first time I seen it, I really, really enjoyed it. But kind of the same as what Sasha says, I was like, that was a roller coaster, and I was left kind of wondering, what was that? But I've now watched it again, and I love this film. It's 9 out of 10 for me. It's got, as Paul said, horror elements and comedy elements. One in particular is when Will Poulter pisses up against the tree, but I'm sure we'll get into that. But it's a film you can watch in the dark and completely freak yourself out, or it's a film to watch with friends and just get drunk and have a good time. And either way you look at it, you're going to enjoy the film. And we need to remember as well, this is only the director's second film, you know? So that alone just shows he's going to go places.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know that. I didn't know it was only second. Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. Right, are we all sitting comfortably for my first thoughts? So I can now split my life in two. I think I can split my life between before watching Midsommar and after watching Midsommar. I watched this at 2:00 in the afternoon. My partner came up from work and was like, "Are you all right?" Because just staring, looking at a blank wall when she arrived. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm all right, but we're never going to Sweden." Like, honestly, I mean, you've ruined a country for me, Paul. You've ruined a whole country for me. But all that being said, I quite liked it.
Yes.
I quite liked it. Paul. Honestly, like I mean, God damn you, Paul. You're right. I actually genuinely really liked it. So, just to give the audience some context on where I'm coming from here, with my conflicting views, I absolutely detest horror. I absolutely detest horror films. So when Paul suggested this, I was like, I'm going to absolutely hate this. But, you know, for me, horror films, and this is just my personal opinion, I find in horror films that a lot of the times, not all, but a lot of the times, some things about the filmmaking process are sacrificed in favour of their intention of like jump scares, provoking a reaction from the audience. Something always falls down along the way. Like it could be the story, it could be the performances, the actors, it could be the directing. Not in all cases, but that's just my opinion. There are, of course, exceptions to the rule. For example, the film Get Out is one of my favourite films of all time. That's in my top 10. I absolutely love that film. The directing in that's absolutely genius. Jordan Peele's a genius. Danny Kaluuya puts in a fantastic performance in that film. He's one of the best actors we've got right now. And I think Midsommar falls more towards that side, the Get Out side of things for me, than the other side. And the reason for that is, for me, is quite simple. This film is beautiful. It is beautifully shot. It's absolutely stunning. And the main thing for me was I saw things in this film that I'd never seen before. And that's so rare, especially for people who work in the film industry as well. It's so rare to see something new. Like we'll get into that in a second when we're talking about how the film looks and how it's shot and everything. But like to see something new was just absolutely. I was transfixed by some of the things in this film. It's absolutely brilliant. So on that side of things, on the objective, film nerd, I love film sort of side of things. I love the film. Horrifying, disgusting story-wise. I never want to see the film again. I don't want to talk about it again after today. I want to just move on with my life. But yeah, so I'm conflicted this week for sure. So let's go into firstly talking about simply just the way the film's shot. That the cinematography. This is a stunning piece of work. So I mean, I'll come to Gary first if that's all right, because Gary, you're the director here. So I was just wondering what your kind of thoughts were in terms of, you know, how the film's shot, how it looks, the cinematography of it all. What are your kind of thoughts? What kind of stood out for you in that aspect of it?
So yeah, one thing I would say is Ari Aster doesn't bother with any of the conventional horror tropes or any rules when he's making films. And you said you watched this during the day, Craig. I mean, is there any other horror film that you should watch during the day than a film that's set 100% in the sunlight? And I think he's very clever by deciding to set it somewhere where the sun doesn't set, because it does give you that beautiful cinematography. And one thing, if you go back and look at it as well, it's a film that's set in sunlight, but you actually never see the sun. The sun doesn't appear in one shot of the film. And again, it being his second film, setting it during the day and also in one location is really, really clever as well, because it keeps the film self-contained. It gives you this sense of entrapment, and it also keeps the budget low, looking from it from a director's point of view. But it also felt kind of like a documentary. It was almost like watching a documentary, because this Western society group, go into this cult in Sweden, and they start asking questions and taking notes and basically documenting them. And that's how we as an audience get that information across. It's not like spoon feeding us information, it's just them finding out stuff, and as they find out stuff, we do as well. And on those scenes where they're kind of surrounding all the different people in the cult, the camera is almost like a fly in the wall, standing behind them as they are taking notes on a notepad and stuff like that. But then there's stylistic elements to it, and two things that we'll talk about is, one, there's the part where she's in, Danny is in Christian's apartment, and she's having a panic attack, and she runs into the bathroom, and as she runs into the bathroom, she ends up in the bathroom on the aeroplane. And what that does is, in two shots, it tells us two things. One, that time has now passed, and also she's still suffering from this really bad anxiety, you know. So just in that quick edit and those two great shots, and also the way Ari Aster films the drug scenes, it's not over the top, it's so subtle. It's not like this weird funky trip where everything's purple and neon lights. It's like they look down at their hands and there's like grass growing through the palms of their hands and stuff like that. It's so subtle, nothing's over the top. And yeah, I think he's great.
Yeah, and I'm still blown away by the fact that it was his second film. I'm still thinking about that.
Sorry, really quickly. Also, you were saying you would never go to Sweden because of it. It's actually filmed in Budapest, so don't go to Budapest.
That's fine. Yes, maybe I can't go to Sweden after all. Yeah, just to go on the back of what you said, and also what I was saying before about the things that were new to me about this film. The things I love. There was barely any close-ups in the film. There was barely any close-ups at all. It was all. If I've got the terminology wrong, I apologise. But the way the film was framed, it was so fascinating to watch. And what I saw as well, one of the things that really stood out for me that was new was the way the actors were used off camera. When, for example, there was a scene when when they just arrived in the commune, and Will Poulter's character Mark, he just suddenly says something off camera, and I actually looked and like, where is he? Where is he? Like just the way the sound hits your ear, and also the way they're used. And I suppose in that sense, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what the director's trying to do here with the camera, especially, is making you feel like you're there. You're standing there. You're part of people who've been brought to this commune. You're experiencing it, as you said. You're experiencing it all with them. I found that absolutely brilliant. I thought it was absolutely genius what he did there with that stuff. And yeah, as I said before, it was. I think it's one of the most stunning films I've ever seen. It was absolutely beautiful. It really was. What did everyone else think about the way it looked, the way it was shot?
At the start, in particular, and going onward, the long, lingering shots, which is a sort of trademark of Ari Aster already in his second film, but really helped a lot of scenes performance-wise, because it really brought home. In the first portion, when they're all in like their dorm rooms and stuff, and when they're sort of debating whether Danny can come or not, it really hits home the awkwardness and the social pressure and stuff. Because in most films, it would cut to like their face or something and be like, "Oh, I'm awkward," but this actually just let it hang. It hung in the air like a bad fart, and oh boy, I think it really pushes forward. But then they take that from the first part and they bring it towards the latter part, and when they're there in Sweden, it's like the lingering shots are now leaning towards paranoia, and it's like what are they thinking from that? There's the bit where he's like asking them, where are your friends, because they've went missing, or they've taken our book, and he's just like standing there like saying, well, maybe you can do something because you're making us look awful, and it's just hanging there, and it's like, is he about to do something? Has he done something? What's it's really, really clever, the use of the lingering shots, I thought.
For sure. Sasha, V, what about you? What did you guys think?
I just thought it was really natural. Like, I felt like you were there because it was just open. I can't really explain any more than that. I just felt like you were part. Like, see, also not the shots, but see when you walk into the actual Sweden and there's no subtitles, you feel like you're part of the crew, because you can't understand what's going on. Yeah, no, I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was really done well and made you feel like you were part of the film the whole way through, no matter what emotions you were going through.
Yeah, that was it. That was a deliberate thing by the director. He said he didn't want the subtitles so that you were experiencing the same thing that the people who had been brought to the commune were experiencing as well. Yeah,
definitely worked.
Yeah, definitely. You're like, what's going on? Yeah. V, do you have anything to add about the way the film's moving on?
For me, I think one of the big things was the sound. So, and he's using music in it. So he has this really good way of making music his music makes you feel a mixture of emotions. So in the beginning of the film, where you've got the reveal of the parents in bed dead, and the horrible scene, it's kind of like sad yet haunting music. It's sad but foreboding at the same time. And he also does it when the people are on the cliff and they have to self-sacrifice themselves. When they come out, it reminded me of old cinema, the way they come out on the cliff and they're carrying them on the chairs, and it was so serene and such an open shot, yet kind of, something bad is going to happen. It's just so bizarre. And the sounds as well with Danny, when she's having when she goes to the party, or when she sees people falling off the cliff, and everything just becomes so muffled in her head, so you're experiencing it with her. So that feeling of like zoning out, you're not there. You're so lost in yourself that you can't hear anything around you. And another thing, he did this with sounds and shots. I noticed that it'd be a shot of something like really like serene, or something still, and boom, you just get this sound. For example, the phone ringing. It's like, whoa, just out of nowhere, just to really kind of make you, feel alert. And also he did that with shots, like when they're falling off the cliff, just like, yeah, it's so calm, and then boom, like the face just splits, he does that a lot. He just kind of like switches it up, the shots. So it's just thrown at your face. You don't have time to prepare for what he's going to show you. So in that sense, it's really shocking. That's definitely what I noticed about it.
Yeah, it's always you're just thrown into the unknown with it. And it's just so clever the way he uses as you said, the sound as well. Like we were talking about the way it looked, but you're right, the sound as well is used in such a way that it does like one of my notes was, as my first note was, I wasn't going to be able to cope when I heard the phone ringing, because I thought it was going to be like one of these kind of jump scare horror films, but it came into itself, obviously, and it was a bit different from that. The other thing that really stood out for me in terms of the film was the performances, for sure. That was the other aspect of the film that really made it for me. along with how it looked and the way it was shot. So I'll come to Paul first. Paul, what was your thoughts on the performances in particular of all the actors in the film?
Oh, I love this. I love this for performance because, in particular, I'm actually going to say Christian because because he manages throughout the whole film to make everything he says sound like the most assholic thing that you've ever heard. Like, you know, it's like, in particular, I loved after the cliff jumping scene, and Danny's, you know, having major anxiety and huge like post-traumatic stress syndrome from like watching it, and she's like nearly vomiting from the stress and stuff, and she turns and looks at him, and he's like, "Aren't you like shocked by this?" And he's like, yeah, that was shocking. That was really, really shocking. Like, and everything he does is just so along that line of just, this guy's an asshole. It's like what the film always points out. And I love Florence Pugh's Danny in this as well. She does such a good job in little subtle ways, you know, the crying and her confusion and all sorts. I think you can't fault her at all. Will Poulter as the guy that pees on the tree. He's brilliant, and there's like a strew of familiar faces in this film, and I thought overall, like I mentioned before, in the earlier scenes where they've got this just this awkward tension between them all is something I really enjoyed and picked up on. It was just, sometimes it can be quite hard to portray that, and it was just so beautifully done, I thought.
Yeah, what you said about the familiar faces, that was one thing that actually like got my attention as well. Like I actually might enjoy this because I was like, oh, Will Poulter, oh, it's Chidi from The Good Place. If you've seen the show The Good Place, William Jackson Harper, who played Josh, yeah, that was great to see him in a dramatic role actually, because I've actually never seen him in anything else. That was like his breakout role, I think, The Good Place. So I loved watching him in it as well. I thought he was great. The thing was, for me, there was no weak performance. There was nothing. Everyone put in a good shift there. And the thing, but for me as well, I love. I mean, I'm big on naturalistic performances. That's my thing as an actor as well. And absolutely, I mean, the performances were just so natural. But particularly, actually, I thought in the beginning, before we actually got to the commune, to Sweden, in the actual first like 25 minutes or so of the film, when we were still in America, those parts in particular were so well done. Like the conversation between the guys at the bar, when they're talking about him maybe breaking up with Danny, that was just so, like, it was like a conversation that you could easily be having with your own pals. Obviously not in such an arsehole manner, but you can imagine yourself in that situation. And it's the same again with just when Danny comes to the apartment and they're all doing their work, and then we find out she's going to come to Sweden. All, as you were saying, it's very awkward. It was very still. It is like an actual situation that you can imagine yourself finding yourself in. Like he's bringing this person we don't want him to bring on this holiday, whether this is supposed to be our thing, etc., etc. It's all these things that you could possibly experience, and it's done so well that you actually feel like, oh, imagine if that was me in that situation. Oh my God. Gary, what did you think about the performances in the film?
Yeah, so this is a long film, right? It's 2.5 hours, right? I actually had to stop halfway through and jump to Tesco for more snacks because I ran out because it's that long. But it's deliberately long, and I know a lot of people have criticised it for being too long, but that's because the actors have time to breathe and actually deliver a performance. Like, it's a character drama wrapped around a horror film. It's not really a horror film, if that makes sense. Like, if this was a basic horror film, it'd be a bunch of teens going to a kilt festival, shagging each other, getting their boobs out, and then being picked off one by one, But it's not. It's actually about the drama and these people's lives before they go and during. And just quickly, what's really interesting about the film as well is it's kind of like the male gaze reversed. And the reason I bring that up is kind of what Paul said about Jack Reiner's character, Christian. and all the other characters, like in, like, say, a basic slasher film, you know, you'd have the final girl, but in this you've got the final boy almost, which is like the Jack Reiner character, because no, as I said, there's no boobs or anything in this, but he is the one, he's almost like the final boy who has to then run about naked during this whole cult thing, and he does it, and he does it really well. And the men are all dicks in this film, and I feel like because Danny Florence is so good in the film, the rest of the actors are going to be overlooked because they're all dicks, but all different kind of dicks. You know, like Christian actually, his performance is great, and he actually thinks he's being a good guy by not splitting up with her. But that's what almost makes him a dick. And I know we're going to go into like maybe a bit of like talk about a bit about foreshadowing and stuff, but that scene at the start where she is wailing on his legs and he just sits there in his own world going, what do I do here? What do I do? I was just about to break up, you know? So you've got him, and then you've got Will Poulter's character, who's like the type of like almost arrogant dick who's like peeing up against a tree. Just, he's there for a good time and he's not taking any of this culture in. He's just there to party and try and shag a few birds. Like, and that's him. And then you've got the other characters, Josh, who is there to learn about the culture, but will break the rules to do so. So he will go in and photograph that book he's not meant to, you know. So how many different ways? It's almost as if Ari Aster went, I'm going to make these all dicks and decide how you're going to play them because they are so different. And yeah, I think they deserve as much credit as Florence.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you make a good excellent point because that's what you also want as an actor as well. You want to be given something unique. You don't all the men to be stereotypical arseholes in the exact same way. You want them to show them that they are people with, you know, flaws, and this is their flaw. He's the arsehole. He's the, you know, the one that's wanting to be successful and get this paper done, etc., etc. So you want that. You want each character to feel like it's its own person, just as you would have in a friend group, for example. Sasha, have you anything to add on the performance side of things?
Well, my favourite performance was the bit where she's on the phone at the beginning, and it doesn't move, the camera doesn't move, and you know that way when you're like trying so hard not to show that you're crying or you're going to start crying. She did that so well, and that really stuck out. Like, she's fantastic. Everything she does is brilliant. She's so good at the subtleties. I love her so much. And like, I'm just at one point just smiling, being like, she's just brilliant, and you totally can feel what she's doing. But that particular scene just stuck out because you were there the whole time. You're like, oh my god, again, awkward. You're like, I'm actually going through this. She's dying to cry, but she's like, no, I'm cool. And like, you can see the slight tremble of the lip, and they'll be like, oh, just hold that back a bit because I can't let him know that I'm actually so upset and I really want to just burst out greeting here. That's my favourite. That's my favourite scene. Mm-hmm. Well, it's not my favourite scene, but it's my favourite performance-wise, or one of them anyway.
Mm-hmm. V, what about you?
I was going to say the exact same thing. That's the scene that stuck out for me. I've obviously been in that situation. But yeah, so you're on the phone and you're like, it just doesn't match the voice. And it kind of reminded me of the scene in Get Out as well, where towards the end, where the girlfriend's speaking to the friend about where the boyfriend's disappeared to. But obviously this was much more genuine and in a different way, but the way it just didn't match her voice. Her voice was so like upbeat, but her face was like pure pain.
Yeah.
And also she's also like really good at when she cries as well, and when she's constantly upset and kind of like moping and kind of like in that state, she does it in a way where you just don't care. She doesn't care what she looks like. She's not trying to look pretty. She's not trying to do it in a stylistic way. It's just raw feeling, and it just totally comes across as completely genuine. Also, I have to say regarding Sir Jack Reiner, he's really good as well, as I think as Paul said as well, and you just think how brave he is as well when he goes into that scene and he's doing that big, kind of orgy thing. Yeah, I think I remember reading about, you know, how it was really daunting for him, and just to be in that situation where there's all these like naked women looking at you and just like chanting, and that scene must have been so difficult for him. But yeah, he pulls it off. So yeah, I think all the performances are really great in this movie, and there is a lot of chemistry between the actors, you know, and it gives not obviously not positive chemistry because you can feel the tension, but yeah, I think it really works.
Yeah, you make a good point about the chemistry. Actually, I'm actually genuinely wondering. I don't know the answer. I'm genuinely wondering what the director did to get that chemistry between all the actors for sure. Because you definitely believed that those group of men were friends. You definitely believed that, and you definitely believed that there was this animosity between them and Danny. I know, actually between Danny and Christian as well. You believed that this was a relationship that was on the rocks, that was struggling. So I'm just wondering, maybe I wonder if he did anything to actually get the chemistry between them going in that sense. I don't know what his rehearsal process is like or what he does in pre-production, but I'd be very intrigued to find out actually. I might go look it up afterwards. So, Gary,
can I just say something on that? I don't know too much about like rehearsals and stuff like that, but what I do know is he lets the actors come up with ideas, and he's not the type of director that's no, what's on paper is what we're going for. And just to go back to Jack's scene where he runs out of the shed after the orgy and he's running about the fields basically naked as well. I read somewhere that he was supposed to be in some sort of robe, that he found a robe and had pulled that on, and it was Will Poulter who said, no, I think you should do it naked. So like if you were playing a female character right now, the female actor would have been basically made to do it, you know, boobs out and stuff like that, so why shouldn't you? And that was persuasion from Will Poulter to do that, and obviously Ari Aster agreed with that and went with it, and it actually adds so much more to it, because for some reason humans, when they see naked bodies, like we've become awkward and like don't know what to do, and we start giggling, and so like that orgy scene and that scene in general, you kind of giggle out of sheer awkwardness, wondering what you're watching. So it definitely adds to it.
Yeah, but now that you've mentioned that, I was actually wondering, you know, the scene when they jump off the cliff and the two British students, that felt improvised to me. That like their reaction to that felt like he just said to them, just right, you just go for it. Just have your reaction to that scene, to what's happening in front of you. Because I must admit, that scene in particular did feel like he just let the actors loose. For the two British actors, yeah. Right, we're going to take a quick break if that's all right. So that's it for part one. Join us for part two when we talk more about Midsommar and play some games. See you soon. Welcome back to part two, where we're talking all about Midsommar. Now, we're going to throw over to our first game, to V for Knowing Me, Knowing Pew. Aha! Sorry, I had to.
So this film is obviously set in Sweden, so I thought a good game to do would be about famous Swedish people. So the aim of this game is for you to guess which famous Swede I am talking about. I have 4 famous Swedes written down here, all associated with films, and I'm going to give you 5 different clues, up to 5 different clues, and I'm going to read these out to you, and if you think you know who I'm talking about, then I want you to buzz in. But what I want you to buzz in with is your name followed by nose pew. Okay, so for example, Craig, you know what the answer is. What do you say?
Craig knows Pew.
Yes, and then I ask you for your answer. Right, okay. So here is the first person. I originally trained as a ballet dancer. No? I have played a female robot.
Oh, I do know.
I am married to a famous Irish actor.
Sasha knows Pew.
Who is it, Sasha?
Is it Alicia Vikander?
Well done.
Okay.
Point for Sasha.
Yes, I thought I wouldn't get any. I'm like, woohoo!
Craig, you were close. I don't know if that's who you were going to say.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I couldn't get it.
Okay, right. The second person. I don't know if any of you are going to get this, but let's see. I was born in 1918. I directed the famous 1957 film where death plays chess. I have directed over 60 films. I have been cited a major influence for Woody Allen. Okay, this is a big clue now. I am of no relation to Ingrid Bergman.
I don't know his first name.
Craig, do you have any? Oh, okay. Right. Should I just tell you who it is? You all failed. Ingmar Bergman. He's a famous Swedish director. No. No. Okay. Right. Let's hope you get this one. Okay. I have a master's degree in chemical engineering. I have a 4th Dan black belt in karate. I made my debut role in A View to a Kill.
Craig knows few.
Go on, Craig.
Is it Dolph Lundgren?
Well done.
Wouldn't have got that unless you said that third one.
My other clue was going to be I was once enemies with Skeletor. So. Right. Is this the final one? Okay, this is the final one. So it's a tie at the moment. This could be the decider. I was born in 1979. I have played 7 lead roles in 1 movie. My surname means bird of prey in Italian and French. I played a doctor in the Alien franchise. Okay, this is really obvious, this last one. I was brought international fame when I played Lisbeth Salander.
Hey, Sasha knows Pew.
Go on,
Is it
Sasha.
Numi Rapace?
Yay! Well done.
Why did it take me so long to get that? I love her.
Sasha is the winner.
Oh.
Well done. And you win something called Stolthet,
Oh, thanks.
which means pride in Swedish.
There we go.
There you go.
What is it? Salt? What?
Stolthet.
Salt?
I
Yeah.
think. Well done.
Well done, Sasha. Gary, I thought you were going to get that last one because obviously you just done Alien and Alien 2 in your podcast.
Yeah, I was thinking of the original 4 Aliens, not like the more recent. And also, I realised I do not know where any actors or filmmakers come from. So that's what I learned from that.
That became apparent to me as well, quite quickly.
Yeah. I was just hoping for the Skarsgård family to come up.
Yeah.
I was just going to start shouting out their names and hope for the best.
Nicholson, Skarsgård.
I almost put Alexander Skarsgård in there because I do love him, but I thought that'd be too obvious because I'm obsessed with him. So.
Right then, shall we get back to Midsommar? So there is quite a bit of foreshadowing in this film, quite a lot. In fact, I mean, most of the trivia and the fun facts in this film are mainly all the foreshadowing moments in the film. I know that V, you're also quite interested in the symbolism that was happening in the film too. So V, can you tell us more about that sort of thing, please?
Right. Okay. Where do I start? It became obvious that Ari Aster put a lot of work into this film, like a lot of work. On your first viewing of it, you're aware of what does that mean? Why are they showing me this random thing? And then, on the second viewing, you're like, that's why they're showing that. That's what that means, and that's what that means. So the amount of work that Ari Aster's team put into it, into basically almost every scene, that there's something there, which is meant to mean something a little bit deeper. And I mean, you can even start from the very first scene where you've got the mural at the beginning, which is the picture, which really is just the film separated into 4 different parts. And 4 different seasons, I guess you could say. which they do talk about later on in the film when they talk about the seasons of the person's life. And if you look at each of those sections, you can see hints as to you won't necessarily know exactly what's going on, but you can definitely see hints as to what happens in the plot later on throughout the film. You've also got these pictures in the first scene, it's not the first scene, it's the second, third scene, where Danny's in her apartment, and there's the picture of the bear and the girl with the crown and the head and the bear. That's obvious foreshadowing for what happens later on in the film, when Danny gets crowned May Queen and Christian gets put into a bear suit. You've also got the sleeping quarters, where there's all these pictures on the wall, and they basically tell you each section of what's going to happen in all the rituals in each part of the film. You could go on forever about the pictures, but one thing I'd like to mention is the rooms. So Ari Aster came up with his own runic alphabet. I believe he used the real runic alphabet, but he changed the meanings behind each of the characters. So each of those characters actually means it could mean an emotion or a state of being. So if you look at Danny's robe towards the end of the film, she's actually got two symbols on her. And one symbol is the symbol for ride or journey, and the other symbol is the symbol for awakening. So that kind of represents her journey throughout the film. And also Christian has a symbol on his towards the end, which is the symbol for sacrifice, which is essentially what happens to him at the end. And you've got these rooms just randomly throughout the entire, throughout each scene of the film. You've got obvious symbols like that. And for me, the way it was shot as well, for example, the way at the beginning it's really dark and bleak, and it's really it's winter and it's cold, and then it gradually gets lighter and as you head to Sweden, and it becomes just pure daylight later on. And for me, that symbolized Danny's journey from darkness and grief to this awakening and being happy and free. There's so many things in there, and I'm sure everybody else picked up on other things that were there too. It's just, there's so much to pick on.
Yeah, there's a whole. Well, I'm sure there's some more that people will still have up their sleeve for sure. My favourite, of course, was the Chekhov bear, though, as I wrote it in my note. That's why that were my notes as well. Yeah, Chekhov bear. Yeah. One of my favourite scenes in the film actually was when the guy was walking past the bear cage. He was like, "There's a bear there. Hey, don't worry about it." I love it. Yeah, that's fun. I love that bit. That was great. You were saying, Paul, as well. I remember what you said earlier. You said how you laughed at moments in this film as well, and that was another thing that came in my head. There was that there was some actual I actually laughed, a few times in this. Properly laughed out loud at a few moments in this film. One of my favourite fun facts that I found was that when the film was shown in Sweden, apparently many Swedish critics praised it as an excellent black comedy. So, which I thought was absolutely brilliant, and that kind of just sums up their whole kind of film culture, I think, in that country. I don't like the Scandi countries in general. Yeah, it's just brilliant. So, did anyone else notice any other foreshadowing moments in the film? There is a few. Did anyone else have any more that they kind of saw? Yeah.
Yeah. I loved how each of the characters kind of touching a bit on what V was talking about. They each have their own sort of place in the ritual sacrifice, as you could say, or their journey's destination, you could say, because Danny's the one that comes across all the pictures of the May Queen, and it sort of eventually, leads her down to becoming the May Queen. Christian Will Reiner is, obviously shown to be the bear throughout the picture at the start, but he's also the recipient of another one, which is the love spell.
Yeah,
and that's there's a whole bit it just pans across and showing you this elaborate love spell, which, by the way, when that part came up in the film, my notes were, warning, this pie may contain more pubes than it appears. So there's the love spell, but there's also when they arrive at the village, Will Poulter's character's destination is foreshadowed, because they arrive and they're all dancing around singing Skin the Fool.
Yeah.
And that's what happens to him. He gets skinned alive. And he's they're doing the dance with and they're like parading around. Oh, yeah, we'll join in. I couldn't quite find anything, maybe someone else did, foreshadowing Josh. I do know, obviously, he's obsessed with their books. And he sneaks out to get it, and that's what pays the price. So I know he's like obsessed with knowledge. I couldn't actually find anything myself foreshadowing that, but I'd be curious to know if anyone else did. But also, it's interesting to note is the village also feed them both, Christian and Josh, different information. Like one of them saying, "Oh no, we don't do incest here. That we still hold that taboo." And then the other one's like, "Yeah, this guy here, he's a product of years of incest," and it's like, I think he sort of, my analysis on it was that he just sort of, they play him as well as a bit of a fool, because he thinks he's smart, but he ends up with his brains bashed in, So I loved all of each individual character's sort of place in the sacrifice, so to speak.
Gary, do you have anything to add? Did you notice anything else in terms of the foreshadowing?
Yeah, so I've just got a wee bit here on symbolism, foreshadowing, and just themes and how they all tie in. And if I ran on here, just cut me off or edit it out, all right? But to me, the film is all about grievance and acceptance and family, and I think that is told heavily through symbolism and foreshadowing. So as we touched upon earlier, like the film starts off in winter, and as we all know, winter life has died, plant life, trees have not got any leaves on them, and then as the film carries on, it goes into summer, obviously. But at that start in winter can almost symbolise death, and that's when her family has just been killed. And then basically the rest of the film, even though Danny might not know it, she is looking for acceptance and family, and by the end of the film she has found that. She thinks she's got family in Christian and her boyfriend, and they've got each other as a family. All the lads are like their own wee family, but they inevitably turn against each other through trying to write their essays and arguments. But at the start, Danny loses her family and she's completely devastated. And one of the things that I think is foreshadowed is they die from being gassed, but her boyfriend is almost gaslighting her through the film. And I think that is like deliberate. And this kill are one big, huge family who, maybe through incest or not, they embrace each other and they love each other and they take care of their own, and they've got these rules where you're a child till this age, then you go away and see the world until you're this age, then you come back and you help out, and then you die by this age. And Danny is basically reborn into this family, and they start to support her and truly love her. And one scene it shows that is, we touched on earlier, but when she loses her family and she's wailing on Christian's knee, and he does nothing to support her. But then when the guy jumps off the cliff and misses the rock and he's wailing in pain, they wail with him, they support him, and they're crying. And then later on, when Danny finds Christian cheating and she starts breaking down and crying and wailing, they again embrace her and they start wailing with her. And the first time I watched it, I was like, are they just taking the piss out of her? But then as I understand it, it's not. It's some form of support that's in this culture, And the other thing I wanted to talk about was, just quickly, she also smiles at the end. And I think that's her truly accepting this as her new family. It actually reminded me a lot of The Witch. I don't know if you have seen The Witch, but this is maybe a slight spoiler, so stop listening now if you've not seen it and want to. But at the end, she's embraced, the main character and the witch is embraced, and she does the exact same thing. It's this almost smile to camera, you know, she's found a new home and a new family. And just some more on the symbolism and foreshadowing is the men, the group of friends, are basically, well, Christian more than the rest, he's used as just a way to procreate. That's it. And then he's killed and he's made into a trophy. But she's looked at as part of the earth and worshipped. And I think one like foreshadowing of that is all the flowers that surround her. But then obviously with Christian, like he's actually just turned into like a beast that's almost supposed to be like wiped from the earth. You know, there's like metaphors in both of them as well with how they're represented through the story. Yeah. And I think that's me ranted enough on that.
The thing is, though, it's so clever of them. There's so much to talk about because the story is so clever, and he's putting so many Easter eggs, if you will, that just make you like saying that I never want to see it again, but you know, I kind of do. I kind of want to go back and watch it again and actually try and pick out all these little pinpoints because I didn't notice all of them, of course, first time viewing. Sasha, did you notice any more? For I rattle off the other ones that I've found?
No, but I agreed, because I pretty much agreed with everything you said, but I agreed with when Gary was talking about the wailing part, because when I first watched it, I was like, what are you doing? But they do it, like, it's 4 times they do it. Like, so when the guy doesn't actually die, when he falls off a cliff, they all do it with him, and it's like they're feeling their emotions. When they're having sex, all the women are kind of feeling her emotions and doing that. When she catches them having sex and she's upset, all the girls are feeling the pains as well. And then at the end, when the 2 guys who volunteer themselves to go into the yellow tent, when they're burning and everyone is outside screaming and burning, I was like, this makes sense because they're all just feeling what each other's going through. So I thought that was actually really beautiful and quite, it was just really nice. And also I feel like she's becoming part, like, see, whenever she's taking drugs and she can feel like, and she can see like things growing on her, it's like she is being accepted and becoming part of them. So I thought that was quite nice as well. But yeah, that's pretty much what I noticed.
It's almost like they say that twins can feel each other's emotions, like pain or love or happiness, and it's like that taken to a whole new level.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they're all actually one. Sorry.
Yeah, I did feel like that as well, like with the becoming one. But I have to say as well, there's a side of it where I thought, is this also just kind of showing how Danny is constantly manipulated? Because she's manipulated, gaslighted by her boyfriend. And then when she gets to this place, she's fed drugs, she's manipulated. When Pele has this conversation with her, he's manipulating her. When she's in the dancing around the maypole, becoming the May Queen, I thought it was quite symbolic because when she's like pushed from person to person, she doesn't know what's happening and she's intoxicated, and it was like stop, go, just pushed, and she doesn't know what's happening, and it's kind of like her life. Like she's just constantly pushed by people to do something and go a certain way. And that's how I felt as well. Like, okay, she's happy, but she's being manipulated constantly throughout this.
I find that really interesting because, like, I feel like any time they're fed food or drink in this, I feel like it's been laced with something, you know, anytime. Which also made me think, you know, they go, it's 9 p.m. and they're like, how can that be with the sun's like shining? And I'm like, is it 9 p.m.? Are you just high as hell right now? You know, and you know, so it could be that the sun never sets, or it could be, you know, they're laced. I was also thinking, is this all just a big crock of shit? Because when they're in the ritual at the end, the 2 willing sacrifices are there. He goes, here, take the sap from the tree. You'll feel no pain. You'll feel no fear. And then what do they do as soon as they're lit on fire? What anyone else would do. Start burning alive. And then you're like, hang on. You were meant to be all right in this, you know. So, and then they're all like, some of them at the end are like in pain, and some of them are happy. That's like a mixed emotion. So, I found it is all of this like what their belief system is kind of just is it all hollow, or is there something to it? That was something I sort of picked up on as well.
Yeah, that
Don't
was
you-
something I noted down as well, Paul, for sure. That note particularly, yeah. The men at the end, I thought, signified that everything they've been told is a lie. So it's all a lie, because the first one, as you said, was told to you won't feel any pain, I think it was.
Mhm.
The other one was told you won't feel any fear.
Mhm.
And that actor was looking at that guy like he was absolutely petrified, and the other guy started feeling, obviously. So yeah, that was my interpretation. I thought, yeah, it looked as if it is all a lie. It's all a lie. And it is like your standard cult situation for sure. The other ones I noticed I found online as well. Apparently, Danny's surname Ardor means flame. That's one thing. You said about the bear and the crown. This is my favourite thing though. Apparently, I didn't realise it until I read this. Neither Danny or Christian, who are the two main characters technically, neither of them speak a word in the final 20 minutes of the film. They don't speak a word. They don't speak a word. I didn't notice that until I read it. They make noises, yeah, like when the crying and stuff, but they don't actually speak in the last 20 minutes, which I found that fascinating because it didn't occur to me at all until I was told. Yeah, so there's a lot in this film which is actually great.
Lift this curse from my wife.
Use this prayer in your time of need when you feel the need to be.
Don't you see another word?
This place is cursed. Something's happened to her.
Now, this film, as we said, has provoked a lot of emotions, I think, in everybody. For sure. Surprise for me is my main emotion because I wasn't expecting to enjoy it so much. What do people... How did the film make everyone feel? It's a little therapy session to finish off this discussion. So let's start with Sasha. Sasha, how did the film make you feel?
I'm still not sure how I feel about this. Like, I went through a lot of emotions with this film. I kind of just feel like I felt how Florence or Danny felt the whole way through it. I don't know. I'm still not really sure how I felt about it, but I kind of, when it ended, I was like, the second time, I was like, yeah, okay. I feel like she's in a good place and I'm happy, but I'm also still really freaked out. So yeah, it's between freaked out and happy, I guess. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Gary, how about you?
Well, look, like we love and we fear things that we don't understand, and especially in like a Western society like America and the UK, like we're slowly like losing a belief system, and like religion's becoming like less and less of a thing. And the fact that this film is set around a cult, that's what makes it, for me, that's what makes it scary. There's a complete contrast between these main characters and us as like a Western society audience, and it's almost basically putting this contrast between the cult and these characters, and at the end they sacrifice us as a Western society. I mean, the guy they kill at the end is called Christian. Like, so yeah, so for me that's what I love. I also love the fact that there's no, a lot of the time with these folklore and cult films, it's all satanic and there's like a demon. So like in Hereditary, the whole way through it, you're actually like, what the fuck is going on in this? And then they show you the demon at the end, and I was like, it's kind of take me out of it. But this, it doesn't need a demon. You get the fear factor from how crazy this cult is and what they believe in. That's, for me, that's the scary part. And I guess it was kind of brought up earlier, but it does the same thing for me as what Get Out does, as in we're in this place of unknown, and in both films the whole way through it we're like, what is going on? And that's what freaks us out. Oh, that's what I think anyway. I just ranted again, I'm sorry.
V and Paul, to sort of both of you at the same time, if that's all right. So did you have anything to add on how the film made you feel?
Yeah, well, touching on a little bit about what Gary said, this film I think, naturally makes you feel like an outsider. So you go in, like when they jump off the cliff and whatnot, we're all going, like, I feel tense just before he jumps off, you know, and they're all staring and they freak out when he's jumped. But they're all like, when the first one jumps off and she dies, you know, they're all fine about it, and like they're freaking out and they're going, what's wrong with you? Of course they jumped off. You silly. You know, that's what we do when we reach 72. What's your problem? You know, and it does a really good job of making you feel like an alien, you know, and mix that in with constantly lacing everything they're drinking with LSD, we're going to say. It does a really good job of making you feel off balance, I feel. You never quite know what's coming next. You feel like an outside. It really does kind of alienate you without it making you aware it's a film kind of thing. You know, it really does make you stand back and go, I do not feel welcomed here, even though they've got open arms kind of thing. So that's kind of how I felt about it. I loved it though. I loved being in the middle of that crazy ride.
Yeah. V, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think I like watching a film where I feel like you don't know what on earth is going on and you're just trying to figure it out for yourself. So that's how it made me feel, like trying to just like, it's the anticipation and the suspense of like what's going to happen. It's not like your normal horror movie where you know what's going to happen and it's so cliche. This just went so against the norms of a normal horror film, and I just found it like really, like, I didn't know how to feel. Like, I felt at the end, I mean, you feel very tired at the end because it's exhausting emotionally to watch, but you kind of feel bad I felt bad for Christian because he was a dick, but you know, he didn't deserve it. But you're also a bit like, oh, you know, you should feel happy for her because now she's happy, and you kind of, you know, she's finally in a happy place. But at the same time, like I said before, she's been manipulated to get there. So it's a mixture of emotions. Just to add, she'll be happy until she's 72 when she's forced to walk off a cliff. You know, I guess she'll cross that bridge when she gets to it. But yeah, it's kind of a mixture of emotions, but I just felt it was just so interesting for me to see all the symbolism behind it and the fact that it's about a breakup and grief, and it was just fascinating to watch.
I actually, as a fun exercise for myself during the film, I wrote down timestamps and how I was feeling at that particular moment. So I thought everyone might find this interesting. So 3 minutes in, I jumped at the phone ringing. This isn't for me. 35 minutes in, loving the cinematography, feeling all right actually. So far, so good. 51 minutes in, still all good. I might actually be enjoying myself. 13 minutes later, 1 hour 4 minutes. Not fine. 1 hour 22 minutes. Oh hell no! Something's about to go down. They're all going to die. Get out of there, man. 2 hours 6 minutes. The film's now beginning to lose me. That sexiness fucked up. I felt sorry for the poor actors in that scene. That was actually the only moment in the film where I was taken out of it, story-wise. Obviously, I was observing it from a filmmaking point of view, but actually, story-wise, that was the only time where I was actually like thinking to myself, "Oh, I'd hate to be that actor. Oh, I'd hate to be in that scene." Like, you know, it was interesting. I actually laughed. Actually, as you were saying, Gary, I actually laughed out loud when I saw that scene. So yeah, that was the only moment I was like, gone. And then 2 hours 30 minutes. Florence Pugh looks how I feel surviving this film. So there we go. That was my feelings on the matter. So we finish our film discussion now on the show. This is David on the last episode and straight away. So we now finish our film discussion with buy, rent, or refund. So buy means that you really enjoyed the film, you're going to add it to your collection, and you're going to recommend it to everyone you can possibly think of to go and see this film. Rent means that you enjoyed the film, you're in no hurry to rewatch it, but you know, you might recommend it to people who you think might enjoy it. And refund basically means never again, don't want to watch this ever again, I'm not recommending it to anybody. So I'll kick us off. And surprisingly, it's a rent for me, this one. I was so sure it was going to be a refund before I watched it, but it is a rent. I've actually already recommended it to people. I've already recommended it to my brother, who's also an actor, because I know he likes this sort of thing, and my pal, who's into Scandi films and stuff like that. So I've recommended it to people who I think I'm going to enjoy it, so I have to say rent. I do. Gary, what about you? Buy, rent, or refund?
Oh, I'm 100% buy. I almost bought this new limited edition, but I didn't because it was £90 and I can't afford that at the moment. But it looked lovely. So yes, I'm totally buying.
Awesome. Sasha?
I'm buying because, well, I recommended it to my mum. She loves horror movies. And a couple of days later, she's like, Sasha, that movie, I still feel sick and it's 2 days. I can't get over it. I need to watch it again. It's cracking into it. It's dead weird, but I feel sick. so I was like, I'd like to watch it again. I definitely would. So I'd buy it.
Cool. V?
I would buy it, definitely. I don't know if I would recommend it to everyone, to people a bit sensitive. But if they can deal with it, I'd definitely recommend it. It's definitely buy.
Somewhere between them, that's fine, yeah, cool. Paul, our patron of the film, what are you? You get deciding vote, it's a draw.
Like Ariana Grande before me, I am all buy for this film. Because if you know anything about Ariana Grande, she tried to buy the big flower gown at the end of the making. So I'm all buy. I would recommend this to people, even if they didn't like it, because I just want to see their reaction to it. A bit like with yourself, Craig, but you ended up enjoying it, I think.
There you go. It's a good point to make. Yeah, so I am outvoted this week. So it is a buy. Let us know in the comments. Let us know at 100 Film Reviews on Facebook or Twitter. Would you buy, rent, or refund on Midsommar? So that's our chat on Midsommar. Now, Gary, I know you were here just for a chat today, but why don't we end things as they do on your podcast, Choose Film Real Perspective. So tell us where people can find you and what have you got going on. Tell them what you've got going on.
Well, thanks very much for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure. I just love to talk movies and films, and I think, Paul, the last time I spoke to you was till like 4 a.m. talking about the Hannibal show and film, so it's great to do it again. But yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at HughGPro and on Instagram there as well. And yeah, as Craig said, I also run with my co-host Ashley. We run Choose Film, which is another podcast. So that is Film Choose on Twitter, I think, and Choose Film on Instagram. And basically, I've not really got much coming up, to be honest. I know that sounds really boring, but I'm just doing a lot of writing. We're all in lockdown and we can't really get out filming, so I'm just trying to write a shitload, and we'll see what comes out in the new year.
Exactly, yeah. It's a good time to do it. I mean, it's a good time if you are a writer. You're definitely, it's been the time to really knuckle down and get some of your ideas on paper for sure. Gary, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, man. Absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on.
No, thank you. Cheers.
And thanks to Sasha, Paul, and Vanashri for sure, as always. And of course, we end with the life lesson. What can it possibly be this week from me? So, the life lesson of Midsommar. Well, if you're in a relationship and it's on the rocks, and you feel you need to reconnect and possibly maybe go on one final holiday, maybe just trying to save the relationship, don't do it. Don't do it. Call it a day, guys. Call it a day. It's over. It's time to split, because otherwise, one of you is going to end up on fire in a bear costume, and the other is going to be in a floral ball gown, indoctrinated into some cult. See you next time.